Good morning. Today, what's on my mind is this whole COVID-19 thing. And I think so. It coming to Africa has kind of hit us by surprise, and it's been interesting to watch the different reactions from people. So, for me, I'm typically one of those people that don't panicking is not like a thing that I do. It's not to say that I don't panic at all, but it's very difficult to get me to that point. So I've just been observing, and initially we as South Africans, especially, with this thing starting in China, it was all one very big fat joke. Until we realized, or I think we are slowly realizing, actually, slowly is not the word, I think quite rapidly realizing that it's quite real. For me, the turning point was when my younger sister, who is currently in America, was sent packing earlier this week. So she's meant to be there for a year because she's there for an internship, and she's only meant to be coming back in May. So earlier this week, I think I spoke to her on Monday, and on Monday, we were just like making jokes, ha ha ha, because I'd seen one of the stories that she posted up on her like social media about making these smoothies. And I made it a joke. I was like, hey, do you have the Rona? Is this you trying to combat the Rona or what's happening? And it was a joke, a big joke at that point. And literally the next day, when I spoke to her, because I then video called her, and they were told by the employer quite abruptly that basically they have to go back home. And I was like, okay, this stuff is real. This stuff is real. If the Americans themselves don't know how to deal with this thing and are sending people home, it means it's real. So she's actually going to be arriving this coming weekend on Sunday. And with her entire thing being cut short by just over a month, there was a bit of a, okay, then what now? But there's no time for what now. It's time to act and for people to move. So that was the turning point for me to realize the gravity of it. And as someone who doesn't panic, my attitude towards the whole thing was to say, you know what, it is a pandemic, and I hear what is being said, and I'm hearing the facts, but I still choose not to panic. I still choose not to panic because for me, panicking prevents you from actually taking a step back to educate yourself in terms of what understanding what this thing actually is, um, and really just mapping a way forward to deal with it. And I know that we are different as people, so there are people who are prone to panicking, there are people who are fearful, there are people who've gone stockpiling, understandably so, because things are shutting down around us. And I think we haven't quite experienced this, or our generation at least, hasn't experienced this in our lifetime. So it's all interesting. I mean, we're learning as we go along, we're discovering new things as we go along. Um, but my message today is just to say panicking, I don't think, this is my opinion, I don't think is good for us. It's very important, yes, to not have a nonchalant attitude about the whole thing, because when you're nonchalant, you're not taking the necessary precautions and measures that one needs to take to A, avoid being infected with the virus, and B, spreading it. So I think there is a certain level of concern we need to have. And with this concern, I think it's also very important to educate ourselves and not be misinformed. And I speak for myself as well. I believe there's just a lot that I don't understand about the virus itself. And I've been day by day this week, I've been, reading a few things just to try and understand a little bit better without overwhelming myself. Because what you tend to find is that right now it is a big thing. Everywhere you go, in the media, it's what's spoken about. So for me, I'm one of those people. I like to protect my peace. I don't consume too much news. I do draw a line. I still stay clued up in terms of what is happening, but there's a line that I draw and say, okay, this is enough. So I've had people sending me clips and videos and things, and I've had to say to them, listen, I'd listen for a little bit to hear if it's one of those negative or positive videos or clips. And when I realize that it's actually one that's toxic for me, I then stop and I tell the individual, I'm sorry, I couldn't get to the end of this because I'm protecting my peace. I've had to say it to my own mother when she was telling me something, and I was like, listen. And she was saying she was going to send me a video, and I said, save it. I don't want to watch it, so save yourself the data. So it's very important that in this time you take care of yourself as well, your emotional, physical, and mental health. I realized that earlier in the week I woke up, there was a morning particularly where I was feeling anxious, and like I said, I'm not someone who panics naturally, but I was feeling anxious and I had to dig deep and really dissect why I'm feeling that way. And I realized it's because I was worried about my son, who he naturally, him and I are very different. So he overthinks a lot of things. And because I wasn't with him, I was concerned that, you know, he because he's far away from me, I can't necessarily keep him calm, the way that I know that I would normally. So that made me anxious. What made me anxious was worrying about him. But then I spoke to him later that day and kind of everything was at ease. And I've also noticed that if I read too much news, that's what ends up happening as well. So I've made a decision for myself, and I think it's very important that you know and understand yourself as an individual. Each one of us has a limit. You know what your limit is in terms of being able to take in negative news and all of that, but guard that with all your heart. So if you know that, for example, my stopping people from sending me these videos, that's a way to manage it. Me saying that I don't want to consume too much news, I read the facts and I let it go. I don't get too much into various sources and all this panic that's happening. Do it by all means. And I think being human beings in the times that we live in outside of this COVID-19 virus, we face a lot of pressures, whether it's pressures from work. There's a lot of battles that we have within ourselves. Now, topped with this, it's obviously exacerbating everything. So it's very important in this time that you're deliberate in doing the things that actually make you feel at peace. Meditation is one of the things that I do. There's an app called Insight Timer where I find it's got guided meditation, so it's various stuff that you can listen to. Some are long, some are short, and I love it because it's quite varied. So depending on what I feel, I'll listen to a particular one. What else do I do? I dance a lot. I listen to music that cheers me up. I read books that also, whether it's just to educate me or just to take my mind off things. I think we all need it in this time. So be deliberate about protecting your peace and looking after yourself in this time. Educate yourself in terms of what the virus is about, and protect yourself as well and your loved ones. And yes, I believe we will get through this. I mean, if you go and read, there's been pandemics in history that have wiped out quite a number of people, and I don't think this. So some people are joking to say this is the end of the world, and I don't think it's going to swipe us out. But that's just my opinion. Yeah, we will get through it.